Understanding the issue, the lack of diversity in high-tech industries. More and more industries are beginning to incorporate the technicality of the modern age. Companies are aligning themselves with the standard in order to remain competitive in the market. The diversity issues within the high-tech industry are suggestive of larger issues that could potentially happen on a wider scale if we do not act now to resolve them. The common belief is that the white male dominance in tech is a pipeline issue. However, statistics show that the lack of diversity cannot be solely attributed to a pipeline problem. The emphasis on this issue is primarily to highlight the current persistence in the economic divide between whites and minorities in an industry which could potentially lessen this gap. By exploring the extent of the current issue, we can begin to identify the causes and ultimately the strategies through which we can resolve them. Adding diversity to tech means increasing creativity and outside-the-box thinking among the workforce. With a diverse team, you're more likely to appeal to a more diverse audience, thus expanding your market share and driving sales revenue. Now that we've recognized the incentives for tech companies to incorporate more diversity into their workforce, let's review the extent of employment differences between gender and racial groups. Overview of U.S. population by race. To say that tech companies are not diversified enough due to the disproportion of any one group compared to another is not a logical argument. In order to acquire a realistic sense of the ideal racial comparison in tech, we have to understand the racial comparison in the U.S. at large. As shown in the diagram, white people account for nearly 64% of the U.S. population. The second largest group is Hispanics or Latinos, who represent over 16%, followed by Black or African American people at about 12%, Asian Americans and other racial groups at roughly 3 and 4%. Now let's compare the overview of the U.S. population by race with the employment statistics in high tech. Among those employed, only 8%, half of the representation in the U.S. population overall, is represented by Hispanics or Latinos. Less than 2/3 of the U.S. population's representation of African Americans is met by high-tech employment. White and Asian Americans are overrepresented in tech employment. Overall gender employment in high tech. Similar to the comparison of races at large and in the tech industry, here we review the comparison of gender at large and in tech. While in the U.S., men and women are represented by about an equal 50-50 ratio, there is a slight difference in the overall private industry workforce. About 52% is represented by men, while women account for 48%. The difference in the comparison of gender employment within tech, however, is significant. Only 36% of tech employees are represented by women, while men account for 64% of the workforce. This means that there are almost 2 men hired for every woman in the tech industry. Expanding further on the unequal representation of men and women in the tech workforce, here we compare the difference between male and female executives represented in the tech leadership positions. As is clear from the visual, the gap between men and women expands, with men accounting for 80% of leadership positions and women underrepresented at only 20%. Possible factors which may be contributive to the divide are that women are less likely to be promoted based on potential, according to studies, and unconscious bias still remains deeply ingrained within the work environment. An additional study, which adds emphasis to the underrepresentation of women in tech, showed that 80% of U.S. women in high-tech positions say that they love their work. 32% say they feel stalled and are likely to quit within 1 year. The results of this study make it worth considering that the gender gap in leadership positions may be the driving force behind the overall underrepresentation of women in tech. Without fair opportunity for success, qualified women may seek careers elsewhere. When we examine the diversity of leading high-tech companies, we see the reflection of the industry's overall diversity issue. They are overrepresented by white Asian males. However, the leading companies actually possess a greater divide in racial and gender employment than is reflective in the overall industry. Among the leading high-tech companies, Apple employs the highest percentage of tech women, at 20% of the workforce. Twitter employs the least, with only a 10% representation of women employed in tech positions. Understanding the scope of the diversity issues in tech leads us to begin identifying the contributing factors. What factors can we most likely attribute this issue to? The first problem, and the most commonly blamed, is a pipeline problem, claiming that not enough women and minority candidates are qualified for the jobs. Does the pipeline problem exist? Absolutely. There are more men graduating with degrees in computer science than women. While this is relevant to the issue, there is more emphasis on the industry's unresolved issues with sexism. Women have shown to leave the tech industry because of its biased culture. Even if women make it through to a bachelor's degree or above and enter the tech workforce, their battle with isolation is far from over. According to Jun Tsujiyama, director of the Vodafone Americas Foundation, most women don't experience obvious forms of discrimination or sexism in the workforce. They face an undercurrent of condescension that leads to a feeling of isolation. Research conducted by the Harvard Business Review claims that 52% of women in STEM careers will eventually leave because of hostile work environments where the company culture is not accommodating of women. What actions can recruiters take to create more diverse and culture-accepted work environments? The general steps that companies should aim for in their hiring practices are summarized with the following points. Consider diverse candidates first when hiring for new positions. Avoid only hiring candidates from Ivy or top-tier tech schools, and certainly don't require a degree from one as a qualification. Make a conscious effort toward diversifying the hiring process. And lastly, consider how a wider range of cultures among the workforce can contribute to the expansion of your market share. High-tech leaders play an important role in diversifying the industry. Recognize your position and utilize your ability to promote change. By creating more opportunities for women and diverse cultures in the tech workforce, we can move forward toward lessening the income gap between whites and minorities and creating a more equal playing field for men and women in technology. As a manager or leader who is responsible for the recruitment of employees, self-awareness is vital for recognizing personal bias and ensuring fair practice. Alternative programs have a lot to offer companies who seek and embrace diverse talent. If the resources are present, partnering up with one is sure to pay off. And identify how a diverse work environment would directly benefit your company, and then ensure the infrastructure exists to accommodate and retain candidates of all cultures.